All right. So I guess first, can you kind of walk us through a little bit the announcement that the foundation made this morning and the investment that it'll be making?
Yeah, sure. So today, the John Deere Foundation is announcing its commitment to invest at least $200 million over the next 10 years. So since 1948, Tom, I don't know if you have much sort of history with the John Deere Foundation. Well, it's existed since 1948, and since then, it's invested over $340 million in nonprofit organizations and programs that have helped serve those living in our home communities and people around the world. But with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the tragedies that have been suffered over the last year, those things have proven to us that we must all do more to assist people, particularly those who do not have access to resources and opportunities that they need to prosper. So this announcement today is an important marker for us, Tom, in two respects. First, by increasing our annual investment to $20 million per year, we think we're in an opportunity to help folks that have pretty significant needs today. To give you a sense of perspective, I've been supporting the John Deere Foundation since 2012. And in 2012, our level of investment back then was about $12 million. With the vision and leadership of the John Deere Foundation board, as well as the generosity of our only donor, that's John Deere, we've been able to increase that amount since then. But the announcement of $20 million per year represents our highest level of investment ever. The second way that this announcement is an important marker for us, Tom, is that we're committing to invest $20 million, at least $20 million per year for the next decade, for the entire decade. And this is important in a couple of ways. Not only will it help us meet the needs that exist today and those that might arise tomorrow, but it will inspire the type of long-term interventions and programmings that we believe are necessary for sustained transformation in the communities and with the people that we like to serve.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit more about kind of where those dollars will be directed and the programs that it would be supporting or helping?
Yeah, Tom, that's a great question. So let me give you a little bit of a background as to some of the changes. As you may know, over the last year, John Deere has undergone a fairly significant reinvention. And the focus of that reinvention, in its most simple terms, is how can we as a company create and unlock more value for our customers? Well, inspired by that focus, Tom, that concept of how do we create more value for those we serve, we too at the foundation underwent a reinvention. And there are a few things that came to our mind. For example, we know that there are times in people's lives where an investment in them can have a greater impact. And we also know that there are places like neighborhoods in our communities or parts of the world where an investment can make a bigger difference. In addition, we know that for people to truly prosper, Tom, they need access to an entire stack or array of resources or programs. There's no single lever, there's no quick fix to many of the challenges that people face. And lastly, we've seen this time and time again, Tom, that if the John Deere Foundation wishes to increase the impact of its grant and increase its longevity, all we have to do is add John Deere employees to the mix through their volunteerism and through their other support. So with this concept of value in mind and increasing value for those we serve in mind, we're really pleased to commit this $200 million to three groups of people. $100 million, Tom, to families and youth who live, work, and learn in our home communities to ensure equitable access to resources and opportunities critical to human dignity and for self-sufficiency. $50 million to smallholder farmers and resource-constrained farmers all over the world to bolster their capacity to make a living, to feed a growing global population, to reduce inequality around them, and to protect the world that sustains us. And $50 million, lastly, to John Deere's workforce to bolster and complement their volunteerism and their philanthropy.
And then, so can you talk a little bit more in detail, how those different pockets of money would be utilized? I guess primarily, I'm interested in the 100 million, how that specifically would be used to help families and youth. I mean, are there, particular, I guess, charitable causes that would go to?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tom. And let me give you two real life examples of how the foundation has already started investing in families and youth specific to the Quad Cities. So COVID-19 revealed both the importance and interdependence of access to high quality childcare, as well as the ability of working families and caregivers to pursue their careers and pursue their education. We at the foundation are proud and humbled to support organizations like the YWCA Quad Cities, the Two Rivers YMCA, the YMCA of the Iowa Mississippi Valley, because they create this and unlock value for both the youth that they teach and they care for, while simultaneously providing value to the parents and caregivers of those youth who can, know full well that their kids are being taken care of as they're pursuing their careers and they're pursuing their education. A second example, Tom, from the Quad Cities is that COVID-19 hit certain segments of our population in certain neighborhoods far harder than others. And we are proud to support organizations like United Way of the Quad Cities, the Riverbend Food Bank, Habitat for Humanity of the Quad Cities, because they have been working with these vulnerable segments of our population in these neighborhoods for decades. And so not only were they able to help continue their support and create access to vital resources and opportunities in these places and for these people, but they were also able to innovate new programs that will allow them to provide even better support coming out of COVID.
Okay. And the $50 million to help farmers boost their capacity, I guess, how exactly would that investment be used, or how would that money, I guess, what direct supports would be provided through that?
So in that case, we provide support to nonprofit organizations serving smallholder and resource-constrained farmers in other parts of the world, all over the world. So one example is we support a nonprofit organization called 1 Acre Fund, which supports over 1 million farmers every year throughout sub-Saharan Africa by providing them access to agronomic training, access to finance, access to markets to bolster their ability to increase their yields and to increase their profitability as farmers.
Okay. And then the last pocket, the $50 million for John Deere's workforce, I guess, how exactly would that investment be utilized?
Yeah, well, one of the things, again, that we're most proud of is the way that our employees engage in the community. They do it through their volunteerism, and they do it through their personal giving. And one of the things that the John Deere Foundation has is we actually have programs that allow John Deere employees to earn financial credit when they volunteer for a cause. And we also have programs that match their philanthropy. So that $5 million will be used to honor their volunteerism. It's $20 per hour in the United States that we give that employees can use. And once they volunteer, they can direct those resources to nonprofit organizations. And then we also match their philanthropy.
Okay. This might be a bit of a sensitive topic, but last fall, the National Black Farmers Association had a call to boycott Deere, and Deere has since announced a new coalition formed with the National Black Growers Council. But I'm just curious, this investment, would any of that at all, I guess, go toward I guess helping black farmers, excuse me, and addressing some of the concerns that have been raised by the National Black Farmers Association about discrimination and unequal treatment?
It's a great question. So the investment that's made for the LEAP Coalition is coming directly from Deere and Company. The John Deere Foundation dollars could certainly go to support a variety of smallholder and resource constrained farmers all over the world. And that would certainly be within the scope of our investment.
Okay, sounds good. And then can you talk a little bit about how it is that the foundation, I guess, is in a position to be able to make such a large investment and to make such a commitment?
Yeah, so as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the John Deere Foundation, it's its own foundation, and it's funded solely by Deere and Company. And one of the principles that has existed at John Deere for as long as I've worked here is that our business success provides a means for us to give back to the community. And so since its existence in 1948, the Deere and Company has been an investor in the foundation to bolster its endowment and to steward its funds so that we have the opportunity to make this announcement, this commitment today.
Okay. And then, so I guess what's, I don't know, maybe the timeline to maybe start rolling out or making some of these investments? I mean, you know, could we start seeing grants being made in coming months?
Yeah, and in fact, we're already rolling out investments. So here in the Quad Cities, already this fiscal year for us, we've committed over $3 million in direct grant payments to nonprofit organizations serving families and youth. To that, in addition, we've already matched over $1 million in volunteerism and philanthropy for employees who live in this region. So, you know, to extend that, if that investment remains constant, that level of investment remains constant, the Quad Cities could certainly see as much as $40 million throughout the life of this commitment.
Wow. And then I guess, have you shared the news with local nonprofits? Are you getting any reaction from them as to, you know, how this type of investment could, you know, help some of the ongoing efforts that were launched during the pandemic?
Yeah, no, we haven't shared it, but let me give you a sense of what I think they will say. So they're, in addition to the significance of the commitment financially and then over time, there are other aspects of how we are going to be working with nonprofit organizations that are important. One of those is that through our work with nonprofits, we have been rewarding or awarding more unrestricted grants. One of the things that we understand is that while we're really proud to make this foundation, the most difficult work, the hardest work, is actually done by the nonprofit organization. They don't get enough credit for the work that they do. And one of the best ways for us to help them isn't just through the money, but is giving them money in the most impactful way that we can. And that's by allowing them to choose how they use those funds. And so increasingly, and this has happened over the last few years, we've been unrestricting our donations to allow them the ability to use the dollars in the best way that they feel they can. This was vital during the COVID-19 pandemic, as they were experiencing not only significant shocks in terms of the service that they needed to provide, but also shocks in their receipt of donations.
Okay. And then I guess, how did the foundation go about, I guess, choosing these specific categories, or I guess, was there a process involved in looking at where these dollars should go and kind of where the priorities should be?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, it was the foundation staff, myself included, We use the focus that the company helped lead on this notion of, hey, who do you wish to serve, and how can you unlock the greatest value? And the answers for us were fairly easy. I mean, we've been in communities like the Quad Cities for, almost 2 centuries. We've called the Quad Cities our home since 1848. The Quad Cities is our largest community in terms of employee presence. We're grateful to the communities we call home. And one of the ways that we can actually deliver on our thanks is through a commitment like this. And so selecting the support for families and youth in our home community was a fairly easy one. Similarly, knowing full well the power of our workforce, our greatest asset, our workforce, it was easy to commit to them, to magnify their ability to do good in the community. And lastly, our support of smallholder and resource constrained farmers. That's who we are as a company.
All right. And I see that the release says that the foundation will report investments against relevant targets and indicators. Can you elaborate as to what some of those targets and indicators are, and maybe the type of reporting that the foundation will do to, I guess, measure and document the impact of this 10-year commitment?
You bet. So the John Deere Foundation will be aligning our work to what's called the UN, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals are an internationally accepted blueprint to create a better and more sustainable future. As we start our work, we are going to be focusing initially on goals, targets, and indicators tied to 3 things. 1, poverty in our home community, 2, hunger, and 3, quality education. We'll be reporting our progress in our sustainability report. And as years go on, we're going to increase the number of goals, targets, and indicators that we report on, specifically to highlight the value of the work being performed by nonprofit organizations.
Okay. And then I guess, just lastly, I guess what, at the end of this 10-year investment, I guess, what's the hope? What does the foundation hope, I guess, will come and result of that, maybe particularly here in the Quad Cities? Is there kind of a picture, maybe a scenario in mind as to what you hope that impact will be after 10 years?
Well, certainly it's to show an enormous return that's provided by nonprofit organizations. That's to celebrate the work that's being done by those organizations in the Quad Cities. Perhaps another way to look at it. One of the things that makes us most grateful to be in this community is its enormous generosity. Here you have some wonderful foundations, wonderful trusts, also some extraordinarily generous individuals and families. Our hope from this is to not only celebrate that legacy, but perhaps inspire others in the community to find ways to come together to do even more. So apart from the value we think we'll be able to create directly from our investments, we believe it will help create perhaps a greater movement, a greater alignment within the community to do more.